At the midpoint in the journey of our life, I found myself in a dark forest, and the clear, straightforward path was lost. Those lines are the opening lines of the very famous work in literature, The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, a person who protected an entire nation's language by writing a trilogy of books going into the unknown in search of his lost love, Beatrice. Why is it important? Well, for this importance to make sense, I kind of need to tell you a different story that is going to make sense in the end. All of this is going to make sense in the end. So I was born on November 26th, 1988, in a country in the Middle East called Iran. And before, apparently, I was able to speak anything, I would try to mimic things that I hear. Specifically, if the things were in a different language, were in a different tongue. Instead of going to a normal standard kindergarten, my parents decided to send me to a language formation center at the early age, I'm gonna say, of 4, maybe halfway before 5. And as a result of this very early exposure to English language, despite the fact that my mother tongue is something else, I was able to speak and write my name and some words in English before I was able to speak any other thing in any other language, specifically in my mother tongue. Fast forward to when I was, I believe, 9 or 10, and since all that language abuse, that's a joke, was not bad enough, my parents decided to send me, instead of a regular school, to a very religious heavy focused school. And I was a child. I had no idea that in general religion is all about submission and bowing to the authorities, etc., etc. At one of the exams, I remember I had finished early, so I was just waiting for the timer to be done so I would turn in my exam. And since I was bored, I wrote the entire lyrics of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, the song with We Don't Need No Education, on my exam paper, and I thought I was being cute. So I think it's needless to say, I was asked to explain things, and when I explained that I'm a huge fan of bands like Pink Floyd, Metallica, etc., etc., insert your favorite rock and roll band, at the early age of 10, maybe 11, I'm not sure, I was expelled from that school, which was one of the best things that had ever happened to me, because I would have probably been a very different person, and fairly certain the kind of person I really wouldn't want to hang out with. Now by this time I had borrowed one of my older brother's guitar a few times, and so I had started very, very, very poorly learning how to play the guitar, and that was a complete act of rebel in the eyes of pretty much everyone, even my own family. Because, well, you need to realize that different cultures try to define success within different frames, with different limitations, and so playing music, not studying very, very hard, even though I was not a bad student, but I was not the greatest student on earth. It was a little weird for them because I didn't have a lot of friends. I would just hang out, I would either listening to music, play video games, and just do things that were either English or with music, a lot of times both. Fast forward to when I was 18 and I got the admissions for university for English literature and European civilizations and culture, which is a huge fancy word for more English. And understandably so, my parents, specifically my father, he wasn't super happy about this, and he said, I think it's time you started something else, a new language. Go for it. And so within the next few years, because I too was kind of bored, I picked up French and I picked up Italian because I don't know why. Years later, actually a couple years later, at the half point of my bachelor's, I decided that I want to do something very, very, very courageous, at the same time stupid, at the same time kind of genius, and all the other adjectives that could represent a state of melancholy and delusion and delirium. And that was to start making my own French songs. And because for some reason, I seem to have this talent of making stuff up musically. So I wrote an album, and I don't remember the exact dates right now. I published my first album when I was 19, maybe 20, possibly 21. And for that, I won a bunch of things that I don't want to talk about right now, but one of them was a chance to visit France, which I didn't take because I didn't know that I had been given this, because the person who was giving me the rewards at the time, it was the ambassador to France, told it to me, but I wasn't able to understand him because my French had not been that good at the time. So apparently I wasted an opportunity to come here and visit France, which is honestly, all things considered, pretty good. Now between those years and today, I've told that story in different ways a bunch of times. We formed a band, we played a lot of shows, we got outlawed, then I got outlawed, then I published my second album, then I got outlawed again. It's just a whole casserole of trying your best to serve your society with the skills that you know, with the skills that you own, and the things that you believe you master, and getting rejected, getting accepted, getting rejected all the time. Also, I did try to immigrate a few times to France. I made an entire video about it, and it took me around 11 years to finally be able to say, hey, I'm living in France, I'm doing what I wanted to do. However, there's a point that I should give a call back to. As a part of my bachelor's studies, we needed to do what we believed at the time to be an extensive research on a piece of literature, a piece of European literature to present and to talk about. And because of my huge passion for a specific music band with a song called Dante's Inferno, I picked up the Divine Comedy by Dante, and well, I read the first lines and I realized, wow, this is such a cool thing. When Dante wrote those lines, when Dante wrote at the midpoint in the journey of our life, he was 35. In the Christian faith, alongside a lot of other schools of thought, the middle point of your life where you need to start really seeing the fruits of your labors, it's getting rainy here, is when you're 35. And when he was 35, he found himself in a dark forest. And I always remember those lines all these years later, that hey, it would be super cool if when I was 35 I would be in a dark forest and the clear path is lost, but I know I want to go and find my true love, which in my case is probably my entire identity, because I realized I wasn't happy back home, and now I have a new home, somewhere that I've been anchored to like a super cool ghost ship. That was a cool metaphor. Simile? That was a cool thing I just said. I don't know how I said that. And when I'm filming this specific video right now, in a couple hours, it will be officially my 35th turn around the sun. I would have officially finished 35. And that is very, because generally speaking, I'm not super pumped about growing up, about growing old, but I realize that now, at least for my specific case, I still got a little bit of fight left in me, and I like it very much. I wasn't sure I would see these days, courtesy of a gigantic marathon and sprint of depression, courtesy of a massive set of diseases, heartbreaks, and problems. But now, here I am, I'd say pretty fine. And I would have to say that we have a little bit of traces left of the depression that comes and goes every once in a while. But for my case, it's nothing that I can't tolerate or I can't get by. I think the scars are there, but things are just looking up pretty good. Now, there are two ways that people generally believe a good story should be. The first group of people believe that a good story has a good beginning, has a good middle, and has a good end. Also good characters, good villains, good protagonists, etc, etc, etc. There are also a second group of people that I believe are right, in my case, that a good story doesn't really have to be a good story. It just have to be told a lot, right? It just have to be repeated over and over again to be believed. I have had a very fairy tale-like life until today, and I hope it doesn't stop. I've had things that when I retell them to myself, I'm still in a genuine state of disbelief that this actually happened in this specific way. Simple things, believe me, simple things that I would very eventually, hopefully, start talking about them. But since I don't intend to make a ton of videos where I just talk into my phone, into my camera, I like to focus more on music. Let me bring this video to its end with a little bit of a music conversation. I don't believe in a lot of words if specifically they are not backed by any kind of action. I don't believe that you can just say things that you think are right and don't back them up by real evidence, by real action. And so, one thing I decided to do was my own birthday. For my own birthday, I wanted to release a very, very special suite of songs. I bought myself a new guitar. I've talked about it every once in a while, I think, in these videos, because I'm really, really excited about it. It's a very decent instrument that it has a lot of soul, and it's shared a lot of its soul with me. And so I'm re-releasing two of my older songs with new lyrics, with new arrangements, and a very different generation and vibe, alongside a new song in an EP called the Hi-Reth. I don't exactly know when it's going to be released, because right now I'm in the post-production. But in order to commemorate, in order to remember these days, in order to come back to these videos, to those songs, and say, all right, I did this. I wanted to like do a show. But November in Strasbourg is a very strange time. Number one, you have Christmas lights and everything everywhere. People are always out shopping and getting their Christmas vibes on. And also because it's super cold, and it's a little tough to find a place that could be beneficial. Last year I had a problem with temperature, so this year I said, you know what? Let's see if I can find a place to run a show in. But the priority would be on the music. I'm very proud of how everything is turned up. You probably are listening to the music behind my voice right now, the song. This is it, this is the end. And the final irony of living, or not living, but finding yourself in a dark forest is not lost on me. I hope it's not lost on you either. Have a great time, stay safe, stay sane, and I will very soon with a lot more music and a lot more story. Peace.
Where the words seem ill, hollow thoughts take shape and dance in the rain. There's a jester in the sky,